I'm going to change things completely this session. We've had a lot of research thrown at us, and we've had a lot of how you can do something because of the research. And what I want to do is the last session of the day. I want to show you how we have made impact using the research. So basically on my last slide, which I have shared with ResearchEd, you'll be able to go and access and read for yourself all of the research. So I'm Elizabeth Hutchinson, and I'm Head of Schools Library Service in Guernsey. And I've been told that a good presentation includes quotes, and I wanted to start with my favourite one from The Mummy. Okay, so I don't know if you've ever seen it, but here we go. All right, I may not be an explorer, or an adventurer, or a treasure seeker, or a gunfighter, Mr. O'Connell. I am very proud of what I am. I am a librarian. Okay, so she was very drunk when she said that, but it was like there was a moment where I'm sitting in the cinema going woo, you know, nobody else was. All right, but more important than that, I'm a school librarian. I was going to ask you to stand up if there was going to be hundreds of you, but there obviously isn't. Can I just ask you to put your hand up if you think you have a good school library? Keep your hands up if you've got someone working in your school library. Brilliant. I'm going to say silence. Keep your hands up if you've recently collaborated with them. And keep your hands up if you've actually had your librarian co-teach in your classroom. Okay, that's what I was expecting, which is good. Okay, so the role of the school library service is to offer the professional librarian support to the schools in the bailiwick of Guernsey. Now I only spot 3 people who are actually from Guernsey, so I am going to do this. Does anybody know, and the people who are from Guernsey aren't allowed to answer, know what makes up the bailiwick? There are several islands in the Channel. Does anybody know which of the islands make up the bailiwick of Guernsey? Nobody? Okay, so somebody from Guernsey can answer. Can you tell me?
Okay, we'll go with Guernsey, and we'll go with Orkney, and we'll go with Herm.
Yes, and Sark too. Oh.
But not educationally.
No, not educationally. Okay, so basically in the bailiwick of Guernsey we are responsible for those islands and those schools. And as librarians we support reading for pleasure, and we have found that that's the most easy way to collaborate with teachers, and especially in primary schools. Most teachers know and understand that school libraries encourage reading and links with literacy. We run book clubs, reading competitions, book awards, we create wonderful book displays, and none of that, I hope, will surprise you. I don't, however, stamp books out, and I don't get to read books all day. Unfortunately, no one's actually prepared to pay me to do this. When I agreed to do this talk, my aim was to raise awareness about the importance of the school librarian in teaching and learning. And since then, 3 professional bodies have got together to raise awareness through a national campaign called the Great School Libraries Campaign. Their vision is for every child to have access to a great school library, and I hope the launch is going to happen on the 20th of September, and when you hear about it, I hope that you say to yourselves, this is what Elizabeth was talking about at ResearchEd, and understand that in order to have a great school library you have to have a qualified librarian available. I truly believe that school libraries can make a difference to our children, and we'll spend the rest of the session showing you how we're beginning to create great school libraries in the bailiwick. So why have I got a picture of people climbing mountains, hills? Well, I walk Ben Nevis, and it can be really tough if you're going to do it on your own. But you don't have to do it on your own, and as a team it's so much easier. You'll be surprised probably to hear that I find collaboration with teachers really hard. And always, sort of, if you talked to me a few years back, I would have said that the collaboration problem was your fault. However, for my master's dissertation, I looked at the barriers of collaboration and was surprised to find that the lack of collaboration was my fault too. It was not making sure that teachers knew and understood what I was offering as a librarian. I came to learn that teachers were never meant to teach alone, and that there's a huge support network out there for you, from peer-to-peer support, mentoring from more experienced teachers, and also many outside support agencies are there for you as well. and librarians should be part of that. So here we go. My promise to myself is that I would spend some time each year making sure that teachers really understood what librarians do, and you're lucky enough to be the ones that are going to find out. Excuse me. Now I love this quote, it's my second one and my last one. The reason I like it is because it talks about maths and science. People normally link, or teachers normally link the library to English. But how can a school librarian support a maths teacher? Going to several conferences, and the only teacher that I ever get to actually talk to is the maths teacher, you know, and I could sort of sell my skills, you know, and when I ask them, and my heart thinks, you are a maths teacher. But even maths teachers need a vested interest in libraries, because if their children can't read the maths questions or critically evaluate and understand what the maths question is asking, then they're not going to do well in maths. So even a maths teacher needs to be talking about reading, encouraging reading, because it's going to help literacy skills and therefore then being the children to be able to do maths. The school librarian are experts in collecting and managing information, and we're great at finding good quality information too. We're loving the current fake news crisis, because this is what librarians have been saying for years, and we're poised and ready to help by designing whole school information literacy programs, which includes critical and digital literacy, and we're ready to teach it too. Okay, so I'm not a trained teacher, all right? I have had a lot of teachers go, great, have my class, and disappear off for an hour, but that isn't what I'm offering. What I'm suggesting is that we co-teach, and by doing this we create independent learners through your subject knowledge and understanding of your students and my skills in research and inquiry-based learning. I want to show you how we've done this in Guernsey and to encourage you to work with your librarian if you have one. A great friend of mine, Caroline Roach, coined the phrase, a great school library should be the beating heart of your school. And I've seen firsthand how this can make a difference, not just from what we're doing in Guernsey, but through social media and sharing impact across the world. If you haven't got one, you've all got one. Put your hands up. Nobody hasn't got a librarian. That's good. Okay, I won't say that bit then. So you're going to head back to school.
I am
You
also
are.
the librarian.
Perfect.
I'm simultaneously being a
Brilliant.
teacher.
That's good. Okay.
So I'd like to hear also the bit about not having one.
Okay. So what I'm going to all right. So if you haven't got what I was going to say is I want to inspire you to go back to your schools, ready to start the conversation about what library provision is like in your school. And even if the conversation back at school is impossible, I hope that my presentation will still be useful to give you some ideas of how you can use tools online, and a list of resources, and the research is at the end. All right. As head of schools library service, I needed to ensure that we were not only helping to create a great resource collection, but that we were enabling this collaboration that the evidence said that we should be doing. And I had to find a way to entice the teachers to work with us. So I began to realise that speaking at and attending librarians' conferences, although great for my own professional development, was not going to give me the opportunity to understand what teachers needed. I had my light bulb moment and decided that and realised that I had to get out of my bubble and start talking to the people that I wanted to be working with, which was the teachers. It led me to the Practical Pedagogies Conference in Toulouse, where I not only stepped out of my bubble and my comfort zone, but I also sat alongside teachers just like I have today. What I did learn is that teachers actually aren't that scary after all, but that digital tools are what teachers are being encouraged to use, and that was our hook. So having worked in several schools, the issues are always the same. Everybody goes to these kind of conferences and they hear about fabulous online resources that everybody should be using. But unfortunately, if teachers aren't familiar with them, they stay unused. And I decided to encourage our librarians to learn how to use these tools and offer them as lessons. Now, I'm not saying that all of the teachers weren't able to do it. There's a lot of teachers out there that are very competent in their digital tools and how they work. but a lot of them didn't have time to be able to make the international connections that we were going to then be offering. I do have to add that I do understand that the tools change, and this isn't about what the tools are. I'm going to give you a few examples of the tools we have used. So this isn't about the tools, but this is about the learning that we have used because of these tools. Are you all familiar with Google Hangout? No? Okay. So Google Hangout is a bit like Skype or FaceTime or a video call, that kind of thing. And we started with offering to do Google Hangouts. The idea was that the teachers just had to let us know what subject that they wanted to cover in their teaching criteria, and we would come up with an idea of how to use the tool in the classroom. So we decided the top left picture is a picture of me in a year 4 class talking to an Indian lady who just happened to be my daughter-in-law. I like to make it easy if I can. To talk to these children about their Indian topic. What the teacher was finding really difficult was to help the children to find and create a good research question. So in order to support the teacher with that session, I helped her to agree to the fact that we needed to work together, and we planned lessons on how to create a good question. We used keywords, we used Britannica Online, we looked at the school library catalogue, and yeah, we did even use books. But this meant that we ran out the hangout with our students, then they were ready to ask the questions. If I'm honest, the research lesson, that wasn't a problem because that's what I do. The technology side, yeah, was a bit more different and a bit of a learning curve, but it got my foot in the door. But what I hadn't considered was the impact that this session was going to have on the children themselves. In front of my eyes I could see engagement and willingness to make most of the opportunity, and we had some brilliant questions. It was like a real learning conversation that was happening. One boy who really wasn't engaged had asked her about sport. That was the question that he had been told he was going to ask at the beginning. And I think he was expecting her to say something like cricket or football. And she told him about a sport called kabaddi. Now, I don't know whether there's any kabaddi experts here, but for those of you that don't know kabaddi, it's basically, and I'm not an expert, but there's a field and you have to run from one end of the field to the other saying kabaddi, 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 kabaddi. And the reason that you say it is because you have to prove that you're not going to breathe from one end of the field to the other while you're being chased. And if you get caught, your team is out. Well, he was absolutely enamoured by this, having gone from not wanting to do any research, not wanting to do any writing. He was suddenly completely engaged, and he produced a beautiful piece of work. We then decided to go a stage further, and we ran a mystery hangout with a group of Year 10 students in Arkansas and Alderney. Alderney is one of the Channel Islands. This is the picture here. It is a very, very small class. They are, I was told, I wasn't told, that they were a group of students that really didn't gel with each other. They'd never worked as a team. There was a lot of mental health problems in that class. They had, there was a lot of truancy. They didn't always turn up. So I was unaware that the teacher was worried that half of them might not even be in school that day. But I went to school, and normally I'm just known as the librarian. There was a buzz. Something really exciting was about to happen. The idea is that it's a geography lesson. You have to find each other. The students aren't told where they are, where each other are. They then have to use their geography skills to find each other, but they can only ask questions that are given a yes or a no answer. So I knew the theory, I knew how to run it, I just needed a teacher to work with me. So I sent out an email, got this great idea, who wants to do it, and it was only Alderney that agreed.